Ciryl Gane put on a masterclass performance in his fight with Alexander Volkov. These two are regarded as the most technical strikers in the heavyweight division, yet Ciryl Gane was so far ahead, Alexander Volkov could not really get going at all. In the first round, he had some success. He was landing leg kicks for the most part, especially that lead leg kick, as Ciryl Gane took the southpaw stance for the majority of the fight. But quickly, Ciryl Gane's feints, traps, speed, movement started to mesmerize Volkov, and Volkov became gun-shy and only found reassurance to attack when Gane attacked. Most of it being when Ciryl Gane threw his own kicks, Volkov would return with his own. But there was one combination Alexander Volkov felt a bit confident throwing the entire fight. He started in the second round all the way to the fifth, and that was a right straight either to the head or to the body, but that's only made for Ciryl Gane to plant himself backwards into the distance of a lead leg kick. But Volkov was only using this combination once he started to figure out a little bit of Ciryl Gane's tendencies of movement, most of it being linear. But when it came to lateral movement, Volkov did not intercept it that much. He had a good intercepting strategy, and that was the lead leg kick. There were a few times throughout the fight where Gane would move out to his right, taking the outside step, and Volkov would intercept the movement with a lead leg kick. But he didn't go to it that much. And not only that, he had another line of success that he stopped going to. And that was when he started to clinch up or reach forward at Gane, when Gane moved in and attempted to move out, and Volkov was able to find a right uppercut. It was very successful for him, but he didn't go to it that much. The intercepting leg kick would have solved a lot of problems that Gane was presenting, and most of it was the outside foot. As Gane tried to exit, if Volkov simply just reached forward and got that single collar on him, he could have landed right hands on him all day. But he seemed to be a bit too mesmerized and gun shy to put on his own offense in the fight. He was watching the show instead of participating. But the rest of this fight was all Ciryl Gane. I mean, he did so many things this fight. Against Sting and Southpaw, like I talked about in my prediction video, Southpaw was going to be the main contributing factor for him winning in this fight. If he got into orthodox, he'll get tagged by the jab a lot more, he'll get tagged by the leg kicks a lot more, and potentially even straight rights, considering the fact that Gane, being in Southpaw, he has the exit strategy of taking the outside foot, getting away from Volkov's right straight, because Volkov is a stationary fighter. He does not move at all. And you saw it throughout the fight many times when Ciryl Gane wanted to switch into orthodox, he was getting tagged. But when he was in southpaw, especially from a distance where the majority of the fight was, he was not getting hit that much at all. Really only some of those leg kicks, but they weren't really damaging. Volkov was just touching with them. There were so many feints from Gane, a lot of traps, especially off of his own jab. He would dart in with the jab and then instantly backtrack, waiting for Volkov to try to counter back and extend himself, so Gane leads him into a right hook. And this also caused him to be a bit more reserved because he did not want to make mistakes. The feints, the traps, the movements, the speed, all this made Volkov not want to fall into anything dangerous, and the movement advantage was so apparent. There were literal times, like 3-4 times throughout the fight, where Volkov actually pressured Ciryl Gane, which is what he had to do, limited amount of the space that Gane could use, but ultimately, Ciryl Gane would just move fast enough, move his back closer to the cage enough where he has enough distance to circle around him, and Volkov literally would just lose him. He would just allow Ciryl Gane to circle around, and now they reverse positions. Now Volkov's back is to the cage, and Ciryl Gane has a center behind him. There was a moment in the first round where Ciryl Gane would shift backwards into the orthodox stance, but he would do it very slowly, and you'll see every time he does shift back and look to attack immediately afterward, you'll see him shift slowly and then attack suddenly, baiting Volkov to follow him. So he slowly shifts back very calmly, takes a huge step back, makes it seem like Volkov is going to take the advantage here, gain the momentum, but in Ciryl Gane's head, he's thinking, okay, keep following me here, and then explodes for the overhand right and connects. Or it would be a sudden snap kick to the body. And there was even a taunt by Ciryl Gane in the first round, and it got Volkov to fall into the attack. I mean, Gane is not as nice as he seems to be. Becomes a little bit devious in the fight, throws an inside leg kick, taunts at Volkov, gets Volkov to respond, and Volkov taunts back at him, and Gane immediately pounces on him, gives him no time to react, throws in that long jab, straight left connects, and the right overhand almost lands, but Volkov shells up. The speed at which he explodes in this moment is shocking. The guy is super fast for a heavyweight, and even though many of these tactics are working on Volkov the entire fight, the jab was the main component here. That was landing all night, and it's crazy to think about Volkov as technical as he is, that he's fighting a southpaw Ciryl Gane and still not able to stop that jab. When they're in opposite stances like this, you generally have a natural defense to that jab. You're able to hand trap, you're able to parry a lot better, especially when you are hand trapping. The fact that they're both so long, there is no advantage in hand trapping here, so Volkov should have been able to eliminate that jab for the majority of the fight. But there were many times where Ciryl Gane did not allow him to hand trap. And what he would do is he'll keep his lead hand closer to his body and simply feint with it before he throws it. And if Volkov could not stop a jab from a southpaw Ciryl Gane, he was going to be in trouble, because opposite stance fighters have natural openings for their power hand. In this case, Ciryl Gane's left is open to connect. The side kick to the knee was always going to be a weapon, just like I talked about in my prediction video. It was going to be one of the biggest weapons for Ciryl Gane to disrupt Volkov. There was going to be left body kicks as well, and that pretty much covers head, body, and leg strikes that Volkov cannot see coming. If you have openings to your leg, body, and head because of a natural difference in stance and the way the fight is just generally playing out, you're just going to be in trouble, man. There's no way around it unless you have a takedown game or a clinching game, and Volkov did not really display either of those. In a pure striking match, at this point, Ciryl Gane showed that Volkov was just simply outgunned. But when we talk about Ciryl Gane's feints, one of the only true heavyweights to use feints, Ciryl Gane was not only using the outside foot step to find his left hand or right hook, he was also using it just to merely pressure Volkov with that feint. The outside step is actually a huge feint that Volkov had to respect, and it got Volkov to back into the cage, and Ciryl Gane would cut him off. Just genius work by Ciryl Gane, man. I mean, in the 5th round, Ciryl Gane even went to the extent of doing the Machida shake, huge feint, and then a big side step on the outside foot when Volkov was looking for the inside leg kick. This was the difference in speed between the two. I highly recommend everybody go back and watch the sequence. 13 seconds left of the 5th round. Just purely shocking, especially the way Ciryl Gane able to circle around Volkov right after this. I mean, Volkov is just steps behind. But let's talk about different moments of the fight here, because Ciryl Gane did so many other things. Oh, and by the way, the kick that Paul Felder and Daniel Cormier were talking about in that first round, that slapping kick that they said Anderson Silva threw a couple times, it's a crescent kick. Instead of a front kick coming up the center, with the lead leg here, you're actually angling off to your left. So it's a complete different angle, and you're able to wrap around like almost like a roundhouse kick, but opposite with the other side of the leg as well. It's a very tricky kick. So we're gonna go here, 1 minute and 16 seconds left of the 3rd round. He was gonna be a combination of Ciryl Gane's defense and then offense. So once Ciryl Gane looks to hand trap Volkov, Volkov extends with his right hand and glances off Ciryl Gane, as Ciryl Gane seemed to not expect it. Remember, they are opposite stances, so the fact that Volkov actually went forward with this attack, it's going to put him in the advantage. It's a shame he didn't do this enough in the fight. Whenever he did, it would mostly work. And Ciryl Gane knows after the right hand that the left hand is going to try to meet him. So he puts up a high tight guard. I love that he put a tight guard instead of a loose one. And also notice how he rotates his stance to become perpendicular to Volkov, making the left hand slide by his back. He weaves under the punch and shifts backwards, expecting Volkov to continue his attack, continue his combination, and now going in with the right hand. Shifting into the orthodox stance takes away that angle for Volkov's right, and gives Gane a better opportunity to possibly slip on the outside of the right hand and counter with his own right. But the fact that Volkov stopped his pursuit, Gane was able to see it and feel it, and quickly switches back into his southpaw stance, knowing that there is no purpose for his orthodox at this moment. High level stuff there by Ciryl Gane. Now we go into a little bit more of defense and then straight into offense. Ciryl Gane now feints and triggers Volkov yet again. Volkov throws a right uppercut. Now Ciryl Gane pulls back and moves away as Volkov goes into his combination. That right hand lead leg kick lands effectively, but doesn't land hard enough. Ciryl Gane now goes on the attack. He explodes forward as now Volkov is off balance. He's not in his stance. His legs are together. His stance is narrow. He's not in the stance to get away in time. Throws a left hand to the body and measures for a long right hand, shifts forward with tremendous momentum and connects to the temple behind the gloves. This is the difference between a tight and loose guard here. This is a loose guard by Volkov. Ciryl Gane then shifts again, posts on top of Volkov as Volkov actually extends a jab but misses. He could have landed this if he had his eyes on target, and Gane cocks his right hand back. Volkov thinks it's going to be another overhand right, so he picks up his guard, but Ciryl Gane goes in for a right uppercut that stuns Alexander Volkov. You probably wanted to see more power out of a heavyweight, but he does land pretty clean here. Now we go to 4 minutes and 28 seconds of the 4th round. Alexander Volkov was able to back up Ciryl Gane with his signature combination. Now Gane wants to get it back and attack Volkov. He hand traps and deflects the lead hand, creating that opening for himself to take off on. But with this hand trap, Alexander Volkov thought it was going to be a left hand that came at him, so he was ready to parry and he pulled away. Due to this pull and Gane's fake, Gane is now able to track down Volkov a lot better. He switches forward into orthodox, fills in the space, gets in really close. Look at the distance between their lead feet. They're practically on a parallel line here, and Volkov extends with a jab. But Ciryl Gane was able to measure correctly, stays on the end of it, and waits to parry that one down as well, opening it up for a huge right overhand that would have connected cleanly, but he misses. This was just a miscalculation of his target. A little bit further down that 4th round, Ciryl Gane extends forward with both hands, but for different reasons. He's using his right hand in order to parry down and misguide Volkov's jab to whiz on past him. The left hand is to measure for a knee to the body, so because the jab misses to this extent, Ciryl Gane naturally gets his head on the outside of it, a perfect angle for a knee to the body. Gane's hand trapping skills and parrying are on point, man. Now we go to 2 minutes and 43 seconds of the 5th round. Ciryl Gane yet again pressures Volkov, and he goes under for a left straight to the body, but misses as Volkov pulls away from it with his body. But Volkov looked to intercept him with his own jab. Ultimately, this was an error, as he exposes himself over the top and Gane strings on his combination. Gane goes over the top with a right hook, but notice his left hand here. He picks it up straight back to his head. He goes to the body and does not drop it. Right back to his head in a stance, the right hook connects, and as well, he brings that back to his stance too. Not dropping his hands after his punches, and how many fighters can we not say that for? How many fighters have been dropped or knocked out because they've dropped their hands after throwing punches? And with that, he puts up a tight guard and weaves under the right hand looking for a right hook counter. But good job by Volkov fading away from the punch. Not only that, Ciryl Gane in the 5th round had a takedown into an uppercut combination, taking a page out of Chad Mendez's book. And the only other thing I want to talk about here is Ciryl Gane's power. And this is a bit worrying me if he goes and fights someone like Francis Ngannou. Now, I believe Ciryl Gane could beat any heavyweight on the planet. Possibly, right? He has the potential to beat even Ngannou or Stipe Miocic. Doesn't mean he will. It's very tough, because I don't know where his takedown defense is, and I don't know if he can deal with the power or even hurt Francis Ngannou with his own shots. So there was a moment at the end of the 4th round here. He goes in for a low feint overhand right and connects cleanly. It was one of the cleanest shots of the entire fight. But man, it didn't hurt Volkov at all. It just shows that Ciryl Gane does not have power. Even the natural heavyweight power that usual guys have, Ciryl Gane's actually on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to power out of all the heavyweights. He's at the absolute high end of technique, but he's on the low end of power. This concerns me if he ever fights Francis Ngannou, because I don't think he has the power to hold that guy off. And it just goes to show you, man, you can't have it all. You can't be the most technical and the fastest, as well as have the power and takedown defense and wrestling skills to go with it. So Ciryl Gane definitely does not have power. That's something we do know. But the thing that we don't know is, how good is his takedown defense? It's still unknown. He's all the way to a title shot practically, and we still don't know how good his takedown defense is, especially against the higher end fighters like a Curtis Blaydes or Stipe Miocic. He stuffed a couple takedowns earlier in his UFC run, but still did not defend that much, and against great takedown artists. Ciryl Gane at this point, at least technically looks unbeatable. He looks like the best heavyweight on the planet. But if his takedown defense is not there, and he cannot hurt Francis Ngannou, even though how technical he is, he's possibly the 3rd best heavyweight on the planet, right behind Francis and right behind Stipe Miocic. He would outstrike Stipe 100%, but if he cannot stop the takedowns, he will lose that fight. With Francis Ngannou, he will out-technique him. He will make him whiff punches. On a tactical standpoint, Francis Ngannou has nothing for Ciryl Gane. If Ciryl Gane starts landing and Ngannou brushes off his strikes like they're nothing, he will literally walk through punches and land his own and put out Ciryl Gane. Kinda similar how we did against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, without the rushing, of course. Francis Ngannou could not rush down Ciryl Gane. He will miss punches and he'll gas out doing it. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a powerhouse. That guy is on the higher end of the power spectrum, and he could even hurt Francis Ngannou. Stipe Miocic barely hurt Francis Ngannou with some of his best punches. That's the one thing that worries me for Ciryl Gane going into a title fight like that. But just looking at this performance that he had against Volkov, it was spectacular. Just a genius at work here. It's always a treat to watch Ciryl Gane. Some people do think he's kind of boring, but I love these technical performances. It's the performances I most look forward to. And what's next for this guy? There's only 2 fights for him. Either a title shot, the winner of Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. I don't think he's going to get that with Stipe Miocic out there. The fight I want to actually see is Ciryl Gane versus Stipe. #1 contender fight. I know Stipe deserves a title shot, but with Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis already happening, let's just do Gane and Stipe. I mean, Gane took no damage in this fight practically. I don't think he's injured. It would be an amazing fight. I think everybody would love to see it, and it would answer the questions to Ciryl Gane's defensive wrestling. Right, I don't want to see him go into a fight with Francis Ngannou, and now Ngannou's taking the guy to the ground. Imagine that. Not even just the striking. What if Ngannou's strong enough and good enough in the wrestling to take down Ciryl Gane? That ground upon that Ciryl Gane's going to have to suffer under is going to be horrendous. And that is a huge possibility because people are sleeping on Francis Ngannou's wrestling. He reversed Stipe Miocic in the wrestling and took him down. It would not surprise me at all if he took down Ciryl Gane as well. So ultimately, I love the performance. It was a great fight, and I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to thumbs up, drop a like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.